practice to try and copy your neighbors and your friends, especially when some of them were perfect. Instead, be what you can be, and hopefully what you do will be special enough to be remembered as an effort that will fit proudly in the American Olympic tradition. We are fast approaching that moment in time for 23 special gymnasts as Coca-Cola presents the 1988 Olympic trials in men's gymnastics. Good afternoon. I'm Al Troutwig at the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City, Utah. We're here to see which 6 men will represent the United States in gymnastics in Seoul in September. And the process by which they're selected is a 2-stage affair. First, July 9th in Houston at the U.S. Nationals, they earn 40% of their score. Then here at the trials in Salt Lake City, the last 60% is added on, and the best 6 will go. Now, there are some men, 2 of them, old veterans, who will earn 100% of their score here in Salt Lake City because they were physically unable to compete in Houston. Here to talk about Ben and all the other men involved is, of course, Gordon Maddox. Now, Gordon, those 2 veterans are the gold medalists from Los Angeles. First, Scott Johnson, who had a broken hand, which is on the mend, and he looks pretty good.
Well, Al, he had intended to go to the Olympic Games and then retire from the sport. When he broke his hand, it put a real glitch into his plan. He had surgery. He's now carrying around a couple of screws in that hand and says he feels good, but it did interrupt his training. But right now, when he's competing, he's got all the chips out on the table.
Now, due to the complex scoring procedure, we won't know where the Johnson and Daggetts of the world stand. And that brings me to Tim Daggett, who had a broken leg only 9 months ago. And already we've seen Tim kind of stumble his way through a floor exercise and really didn't help his standing out at all.
Yes, he didn't know whether or not he'd even be able to compete. And he watered down his floor exercise routine considerably. But in the first event, he only received a 9.0. So his work is really cut out for him.
Now, already the men have competed on all 6 apparatus in the compulsories and 1 apparatus through 1 rotation of these optionals. And Charles Lakes has been much better than routine. Dan Hayden and his twin brother Dennis are also there in the top standings. And we'll begin focusing in on the pommel horse.
While pommel horse work generally means double leg circles with the legs held tightly together, the trend is toward more single leg flares. But either way, all 3 sections of the horse must be used. 2 scissor swings, such as these front scissors, are required. The hips must swing as high as the bottom part of the shoulder. Now, top-notch horse performers show solid, steady handwork. And as with every event, a solid dismount is important.
We will begin at the top with the leader of the competition, Charles Lakes, 23 years old, from New Hall, California. He fancies himself an artist. He's involved in music and in sketching. But right now, gymnastics is his canvas. He loves performing in front of a crowd and turning things on. Now, Dan Hayden was the leader after the U.S. Nationals, but when Hayden faltered in the compulsories, Gordon, Charles Lakes was right there to pick up the slack and beat him in front.
He's having such a good competition, and as in every other event, he swings with such elan, such abandon in this event. He's aggressive, he swings out, swings fast, really attacks the horse. Oh, and he'll take that.
Get a 9.5 in the compulsories on the pommel horse. That looks to be a little bit better in his effort to become the first black gymnast to actually compete in the Olympics for the United States.
Another look now from the handstand, swings into a reverse scissor, which will set up a front scissor. Now watch how high he lifts his hips. His hips will get all the way up to shoulder height, which is absolutely perfect. Now he breaks out of the scissors into more leg circles, does a behind the back travel. Now watch how well Charlie converts this circular motion into up and down motion in order to reach the handstand for his dismount. Right here, it's down and then up to the handstand and into a very solid landing. Well done.
The judges award Charles Lakes with a 9.7 for his pommel horse routine in this, the 2nd rotation. Ron Gallimore, by the way, was the first black gymnast to make the U.S. Olympic team, but didn't compete in 1980 because of the boycott. This is Dan Hayden, along with his brother Dennis. They are twins. They comprise one of the more enchanting stories here in Salt Lake.
Well, it's meant having a team kind of with me and someone supporting me all the time. And even when Daniel's not there, I feel his presence. When I went to China and Daniel was injured at that time, I didn't feel alone, and it was a neat feeling. Yeah, I think it's very beneficial for both of us to have each other, because we help each other in our training. I try to help Dennis with his weaknesses as well as mine, and he helps me with mine. And if Dennis is feeling down, I try to lift his spirits, and vice versa. So it really helps a great deal in both of our training.
Both of them originally from Amherst, New York, went to Arizona State, then left some bad feelings when they decided to leave school and train for the Olympic Games in Pennsylvania. They have both been injured on and off at different times, which has prevented them from competing at the same time many times. But finally, here they are, and right in the middle of the race to make the Olympic team.
And Dan is really swinging out. Up through his handstand. Now look how far his hips swing away from his hands. His body is almost perfectly horizontal. Good, solid exercise. Had one little glitch with his hands earlier. I don't think it was a deduction.
Now, I don't know how many tenths of a point you lose for a glitch, but Dan has had his share, especially on floor exercise. First, it was a 9.0 in the compulsories, and then just a short while ago in the optionals, a 9.15.
Dan really had his problems. He hit some things so well, as in this mount, which is a very difficult tumbling pass. But then, for example, later on, he's trying to simply stand on one foot. He loses his balance, steps out of bounds, and loses 1/10 of a point.
Now, Dan has halted the slide for the time being. His score on the horse is a 9.7. He's there with his brother Dennis, who's clearly different because he's 3 minutes older. Tim Daggett is still to come. We're wondering how much more pressure his leg can stand and how much more pain his mind can stand as Coca-Cola presents the Olympic trials. Handle pressure, and in the case of Tim Daggett, the ability of one man to endure pain like few of us have felt, while exhibiting courage like few of us will know. He has already earned one of sport's most cherished reputations as the clutch performer in Los Angeles who guaranteed a gold medal for the United States. It was the celebration of a moment in Tim's life that would be difficult to top. Yet Tim felt that he had more to give to gymnastics and to himself. But as he moved toward this year's Olympics, the only thing that would give were the bones in Tim's left leg. In Rotterdam, at the 1987 World Championships, Tim performed a vault he had practiced hundreds of times. Yet this once his leg exploded on impact, severing an artery and both bones in his lower leg. There was a move to get back to the United States for surgery, but the Dutch doctors said, if we don't operate, you'll lose the leg. They did, and he didn't.
When I first injured myself, initially the thing we had to overcome was saving a leg. And when you consider that that was a possibility less than 9 months ago, and just to be able to go out on the floor and to try, that made me feel real good.
What should have been 2 years of recuperation became 6 months. As in April, Tim made a symbolic effort in competition to begin rebuilding a gold medal confidence that had been broken down like his leg. This week in Salt Lake came his first competitive effort since the accident, on the same apparatus on which the accident took place.
You know, I was running down the runway, and I had to go for it, but I haven't hit the board hard yet. When I'd done that in the past, I got a lot of pain, and it could have gone right there, you know, and it didn't.
As he limps and grimaces this week, in this last chance at a comeback, it's clear the odds for this recovery may be longer than the odds on the gold medal of '84.
I am not boasting here, but I've won already. I really have. And whether I go to Seoul as a member of the 1988 Olympic gymnastics team from the United States, it's not as important as me getting to this position. I'm going to be giving it everything I got. And I still think that I'm going to be on that plane September 5th going to Seoul.
Now remember, Tim is one of 5 gymnasts who came here to Salt Lake City, counting 100% of his effort here at these Olympic trials toward his final mark. Other gymnasts only counting 60% of their effort. So right now, thinking that he had a 9.0 on the floor exercise in the first rotation really puts pressure on him to nail this pommel horse routine.
Well, it couldn't be a better event for Tim Daggett. He won a bronze medal in '84 at the Olympic Games on the pommel horse, and he just has a sense of security about him when he works pommel horse. He exudes confidence, and that's a great exercise.
He bangs it down. We project that Tim is falling in danger of dropping out of the top 10, but this routine may have changed that.
Take another look in slow motion. He breaks into his flare, takes it up nice and high for a very solid landing on his dismount.
Tim is here sharing these moments with his now close friend, a Soviet emigre by the name of Yefim Furman, his coach, and Daggett receives a 9.90. And after we punch the calculator, we'll find out just how far he has come back into the story. Scott Johnson, we believe, has a much better standing. He, like Daggett, must count 100% of his Olympic trial score toward his effort. His broken hand prevented his performance at the U.S. Nationals. And this will be his performance on the still rings. 3 apparatus in use simultaneously here in this 6-rotation format.
And Scott's mount will demonstrate how powerful a gymnast he is. Watch how he supports himself between the rings with his body absolutely level. Let's call a Maltese. More power there, the popular iron cross. Now, in order to keep these rings stationary, Scott has to imagine the center of his body, his center of gravity, if you will, going just straight up and down. His body looks like it's going in a circular fashion, but his center is going straight up and down. If it gets anywhere other than straight up and down, he generates swing. So far, he's in excellent control. That slight swing is very acceptable.
A gold medal in 1984, another effort in 1988, which looks pretty good right now. And along the way for Scott Johnson, a learning lesson in some of the harsh financial realities of gymnastics.
When you have to deal with the pressures of trying to finance yourself and pay the monthly bills, you know, there's a lot of stress when you can't do that. It takes away from your training. It's hard for a person to concentrate. It was hard for me to concentrate on gymnastics when I was worried about going bankrupt and having to sell, you know, my car and the whole thing. And it was very scary. And once McDonald's offered me a job with a management developmental program, I couldn't turn it down. You know, it was the best offer that I've ever had.
Now, also working with us today is Becky Dixon, who's with Scott's partner, wife Lori.
Lori, a 9.75 for Scott on the rings. What's your reaction? You seem to enjoy the performance.
Yes, well, that's what we were hoping. Is he's got to average a 9.7 to make the Olympic team, and 9.75, well, he's keeping right up there. We just hope that he averages 9.7 all the rest of the events, and he'll have it home free. So we're counting the scores and comparing them to all the others. And
many of the athletes have told us that the Olympic trials are the most nerve-wracking, most tense event of any event they compete in. What's it like for the athlete's wife?
terrible. It's petrified. This is the most intense meet I have ever watched, and yeah, well, as you can see, I'm stuttering. I'm very nervous.
Thank you, Lori. Best of luck to Scott. Thanks.
If the competition ended right now, we project that Scott Johnson would be on the Olympic team. Tim Daggett would not be. Charles Lakes is the best American right now in Salt Lake. At the Olympic trials, needing one of the best performances of his life on the still rings, which will be the third routine he will perform here today. Already a 9-0 on floor exercise, a 9-9 on pommel horse. He's been inconsistent but moving in the right direction, yet in this particular routine, Gordon, not putting too much pressure on that recuperating leg.
Yeah, the dismount is really the only thing he has to worry about, and during his recovery period, he's done a tremendous amount of upper body strength work. He's always been good on the rings. He should be even better now. Lowers down to an upside down or inverted cross and a giant swing into another inverted cross. Picking up just a little swing. Remember, we talked about his center having to move only straight up and down. He's getting away from the vertical there, and he's really generating a lot of swing. Oh, and a big over rotation on his dismount. Not in a good position now.
Tim Daggett landing gingerly on that leg. He needs to be almost perfect at this point, and he was far from that.
Now, looking straight down on the rings, you can see anything that isn't straight under that bar is away from the vertical. Oh, see how far he's swinging now? If he doesn't drop out of this swing move at just the right place, it gets even worse. Another look now. He's at the wrong end of his swing to take his dismount. He needed to be at the other end of the swing. He carries it around and just over rotates it. That's strictly a defensive move.
Now, Tim Daggett is looking at his score. It is an 8.9, and that really is a poke in the eye for him. I think he knows the reality now that this is just not going to be. The scores were just not high enough for him to stay with the rest of the gymnasts. And we're being told now that Tim Daggett is going to withdraw from these Olympic trials, and it is over. All the effort, all the recuperation, all the pain.
Al, I've been with Tim for much of these 9 months, and I got to tell you, it's the most courageous effort by an athlete I've ever seen.
He's talking now with Yafim Furman, his coach. His doctor is there. No one in the arena knows it yet. No one in the arena knows that Tim Daggett will have to live with what were the best of times for him. 1984. Those were the moments that belonged to him and his teammates. The gold medal times. 1988 will have to belong to someone else. Here are the current standings. It is still Charles Lakes leading the way in Salt Lake City. In a moment, we'll talk to Tim Daggett, who has called it quits. It may be the end. Let's go to Becky Dixon.
Tim, was there a specific moment when you felt like you re-injured your leg out there?
Well, right from the start today on floor exercise, my leg was really, really sore. And there's certain days I have good days and certain days that are real bad. And today my leg was real sore right from the start. We had to change our plan right from the beginning. I couldn't do what I had hoped to do. And
Tim, you said before this competition that even if you didn't make the Olympic team, that you would feel like you had triumphed. Are you still able to hold on to that feeling right now?
Well, you know, it was my dream to go on and go to 1988 Olympic Games, but it just it doesn't look like it's going to work out that way. And you know, right from the start, the odds were way against me, and I knew that, and I recognized that, and it really was the struggle. You know, that's what the Olympic creed is all about. The struggle is the most important thing, and I think I did everything in my power.
Well, you certainly triumphed in that struggle, Tim. Will you retire? Is this your last gymnastics competition?
Well, it's really hard to say right at this point. I'm feeling so many different things, but it's probably my last meet. You know, I've come a long way, but my body is pretty old right now, and it's pretty beat up. And you know, I think I can go out a champion right now. I'm not going to be an Olympian. I think I'm a champion.
To paraphrase that Olympic creed, the most important thing in life is not the triumph, but the struggle. And everyone in the Salt Palace knows of the triumph and the struggle. But only Tim Daggett knows to what degree the triumph was important and the struggle was difficult. Now, the emotions working here are quite obvious in their intention, but the emotions working here are a little bit more subtle. What does Dan Hayden, who was the national champion just a few weeks ago, what does he feel like? And brother Dennis, who is quickly moving out of contention for a spot on the team. How about Charles Lakes, who is on the verge of becoming the first black gymnast to represent this country in the Olympics? And Scott Johnson, who's performing as if his hand was never broken. Then there's the graduate of Nebraska, Wes Suter, who's trying desperately to hang on to one of the last couple of spots available for this team. Now we move to the next trio of apparatus, the highlight of which, without a doubt, is the high bar.
This dramatic event is staged on an apparatus that is 8 feet high, 8 feet across, and at 1 1/8 inches, the bar is slightly larger than a roll of quarters.
About to grab that cold steel bar now is Wes Suter, 24 years old, a graduate of Nebraska, who is precariously sitting in 6th place if you include Scott Johnson, who will be performing behind him on the parallel bars.
Well, one of the requirements on high bar is a release move, and it's coming up right here. There it is, a flyaway, reach around, re-grasp.
You see Johnson's routine is underway in the background. Suter, the 1985 NCAA champion, and since that moment has been trying to live up to that awful word known as potential.
Wes, come on, Wes.
Now here comes Wes's dismount. It's a triple flyaway, a very difficult dismount. Oh, terrific.
He can afford few mistakes, Gordon, and I didn't see many. Little hop on the end. But Wes Suter, one of many Nebraska Cornhuskers, past, present, and future, who are doing well here in Salt Lake City.
All right, let's watch his release move now. The trick on a release move, of course, is to let loose at just the right angle so that it takes you back into the bar. He'll do one more one-arm giant. Now he has to release it at just greater than a 45-degree angle. There. That puts him at just arm's length from the bar. All right, now let's take another look at a triple flyaway. Now watch how high he gets. He'll be over a full body length above the bar. Oh, that's dynamite.
Now Suter receives a 9.80 for that routine. Now here's the man sitting right in front of Wes Suter, Dominic Minicucci, only 19 years of age, from Staten Island, New York, and a sophomore at Illinois. On the high bar in the compulsories, he received a 9.65. He'll need to do better than that to stay in front of Wes Suter.
He's staggering just a little bit. He's just had a little trouble on every move he's tried. Here's his release move. Takes it in a little bit too close to the bar, which is safe, but not pretty.
Scott Johnson's score on the parallel bars is a 9.70. That should allow him to hold his position.
And now Minicucci is setting up for his dismount, a full twisting double flyaway. And Al, he's happy to have that one behind him.
Just a few chances remain for all concerned as Coca-Cola presents the Olympic Trials. I'm Al Troutwig along with Gordon Maddox and Becky Dixon as we move to the final rotation, the last event, the last chance for all the gymnasts concerned. Scott Johnson will be the next performer we watch. On the vault, he needs to avoid a major mistake, and a place on the Olympic team is his.
Well, Al, I think Scotty's goal tonight was just to be consistent, and he's done 6 very usable routines, and I think he's happy with it.
Happy with it. He's heading right up into the stands, and there is his wife, Lori, and his mother, and a victory hug. Scott has said all along he needs not to win here, but simply to finish in the top 6. He has done much better than that. He very well could finish in first. Now the pressure shifts to those who sit on the bubble, like Dominic Minicucci. Now, assuming Johnson finishes above all these men, Lance Ringnauld in 5th, Wes Suter in 6th, Dominic Minicucci and Tom Schlesinger all don't know exactly whether they will have a position or not on the U.S. Olympic team. They will know after this one last chance.
Well, Dominic, now one of the youngsters on this team, has to do one thing. He has to avoid giving away those precious tenths of a point. So we'll watch this routine with that in mind. So far, clean. Now, he has no press to a handstand in this routine, which is just fine. It's not required. Most gymnasts, however, do that. Now, here comes the dismount. Well, while it's slow, I think Dominic will still be very happy with that dismount.
Yes, I think you could say that. Staten Island may be known for many things in New York City. The Staten Island Expressway, some rolling hills, a farm or two, but it is not known for producing gymnasts. Dominic Minicucci thinks perhaps that he has given it his best shot and may just be good enough to go to Seoul. To another story, Tom Schlesinger in 1987, while performing for Nebraska, the NCAA champion, but never since then, Gordon, really as smooth as he was when he won that championship, and he is right on the edge, as was Minicucci.
And boy, he's been tense throughout this entire competition. Here comes his full twisting Sukahara. Aha! Interesting to watch the great smiles explode on their face.
In front of his father and his brother, who was paralyzed in this sport, Tom Schlesinger delivers a very critical vault.
Takes it up nice and high, spots the mat, and makes an excellent landing.
Now, Schlesinger's score is a 9.55, which is not better than the 9.65 of Dominic Minicucci, which was awarded just moments ago, so Schlesinger picks up no ground. Now, Lance Ringnauld, another teenager right in the middle of this on-the-bubble story. 18 years of age, a freshman, another performer from Nebraska.
And he'll be showing you a common world-class vault, different style. Watch this now. His legs are going to be in the straddle position. And except for that big hop, It's done very well.
And he may be the youngest man to make the U.S. Gymnastic Olympic team since Steve Hugg, who was 17 at the 1968 Olympic Games in Mexico City.
Now let's watch his style again. Gets it up reasonably high. Notice how far apart his legs are. He just over-rotates it a little bit and has to take that giant hop.
A 9-6 for Ringnauld, and we believe a spot on the team. As the bubble story continues, let's get this report filed earlier by Becky Dixon.
With me now, Mr. and Mrs. Henry Lakes and the rest of the Great Lakes Charles Lakes fan club. And Mr. Lakes, you all look so calm and cool on the outside. I want to know what's going on inside. Maybe a few butterflies?
Well, quite a few butterflies as far as I'm concerned. There's really tough competition right now.
Mrs. Lakes, when did you first realize that Charles had the potential to become an Olympic gymnast?
I've always known him. I always knew he would be an Olympic gymnast.
She always knew Charles Lakes would be an Olympic gymnast. Well, it would have to be a virtual disaster for him to lose his top spot. Far and away, he has been the best American gymnast here in Salt Lake.
And he works with such tremendous abandon. Sometimes he misses, but he always goes for it. Now watch his release moves. All right, coming up. Look at the distance between Charles and the bar. Ooh, yeah. There it is again. He just hangs it out there a mile. And with such great style.
It's as if he wanted to make sure there was no doubt as to who the top man in Salt Lake City is. Charles Lakes bringing the crowd to its feet, and that's something he loves to do. And he will be the first black gymnast to represent this country at an Olympic Games. He only needed a 9.55 to beat Scott Johnson for the #1 position, and he should have that easily.
And Charles works the bar so hard. Watch this. On his front re-catch, goes clear out of sight. Watch the bar, too. He flexes the bar so much. Now remember, he's got one more release, a Tkachov. Again, completely out of sight.
He has pushed it beyond the limit. He only needed a 9.55 to beat Scott Johnson. And these judges, who have been a little tough through the course of these trials, give him a 9.95, which is the best score by any gymnast who performed so far. And yes, the Great Lakes fan club may have known it all along, and they're happy, but more importantly, that's his mom, and she's beyond happy. Meanwhile, the last three men whose position on the team it is to win or lose are coming up. Kevin Davis, recently a graduate of Nebraska, in third place after the 5th rotation. He can finish no higher than third, but of course there's always the threat of losing ground.
But Kevin has certainly been looking forward to this competition. He's known all year, I think, that he had a strong chance to be on this team, and I think that he's in exactly the position he hoped he'd be in. Okay.
And you can hear the exclamations of what should be the future Olympic teammates of Kevin Davis. Meanwhile, on the high bar, Dan Hayden. And he just simply must avoid major mistakes.
And he has the most unique release move in the meet. Watch this, a back summy over the top of the bar. Oh, no, exactly what he can't have.
Now he has up to 30 seconds to get himself together. Tim Daggett trying to keep calm on the sidelines with Yefim Furman, the gymnastics coach, and Dennis Hayden, who has fallen completely out of the picture. Back up he goes.
Now remember, that's a 5/10 deduction, and he has no release move now in his routine. No, he's gonna try it again. Here it comes again, back summy over the... Oh.
Did he have to try it again?
Well, Al, he has no release move. It's a major deduction if he doesn't have that requirement in his routine. But of course, missing it twice now, that's 2 times he's lost a full half a point. So he's down a point plus whatever the major deduction is. We're looking at least a 1.5 points in deductions. Now, surely he can't start there again. He doesn't know where to start, I don't think.
Just a few weeks ago, he was the U.S. national champion. Just a few moments ago, he was just concerned with holding his position. Now he's concerned with holding a spot, any spot, on the U.S. Olympic team.
And he has a frightening dismount considering what we've just seen. He does that same somersault with a full twist over the top of the bar. What a disaster. I can't believe what's happened to him. Amazing.
Dan is there with his brother Dennis, and now he'll have that agonizing weight. But with the mandatory deductions that we've already stated, his standing is in tremendous jeopardy right now.
All right, now let's watch. It's obvious that when he releases the bar too late, and it throws him too far back away from the bar. Now, while it looks like he might be able to re-catch, he's just barely on his fingertips, and if he tried to hang on, it would be even worse.
And the score for Hayden is an 8-3. He has missed it. He has missed a spot on the U.S. Olympic team. One of the most disastrous finishes one can remember. Dennis Hayden also missing it. There's Dominic Minicucci. He is on the team, and so is Kevin Davis and Wes Suter. They both had 9/8 in their last routine on the parallel bars, but I don't know that there's going to be much to say about anything in the Hayden households tonight. There's Scott Johnson. He will have another Olympic chance, along with Charles Lakes, who finished #1. Kevin Davis, Wes Suter, Lance Ringnauld, the youngest American gymnast to represent this country since 1968. The 6th and final position on the team, the bubble spot, was won by Dominic Minicucci of Staten Island, New York. And the alternate, the man who will compete if there's an injury to someone else, and there's a good chance of that in this sport, is Tom Schlesinger. All in all, 5 of the 7 members of this team associated in some way with Francis Allen, the coach at Nebraska. Gordon?
Well, Al, coming into this competition, we knew that this team had little or no chance of a team medal in the Olympic Games. Without veterans like Dennis and Dan Hayden, that's a certainty. On the upside, however, with young guys like Ringnauld and Minicucci here, the future in gymnastics in this country looks very good.
The explosion of joy is wide open and visible, while the emptiness of despair will most times be private. Both should be respected as strong feelings known only by those who make the attempt, those who keep the Olympic spirit alive.